你好 ，Acer， 欢迎来到 S。意识训练模块已经开启，请前往右侧参加意识训练。
Hey, who out there wants to learn some stuff? I know that I'm the Exhardcore Gamer, and apparently I've been pronouncing BlazBlue wrong all these years. How about learning how to help us out? That's easy. You just like, subscribe, and you can also, if you'd like, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames. Why all this talk about learning? Well, that's because in BlazBlue Entropy Effect, it actually has to do a great deal with the plot. While Entropy Effect is the latest game in the BlazBlue series, instead of being a 2D fighter, you're actually now getting in the realm of a 2D platformer roguelike, much like the game Dead Cells. The plot of Entropy Effect has you in a world that is on the brink of destruction. Depending on the choices that you make, you're going to explore and discover just what in the heck is going on. By piecing together the truth from fragments of time and space, you have the power to shape the destiny of the world and humanity. Yeah, if that didn't make much sense to you, it didn't make much sense to me either, and I put many hours into playing this game. As best I can tell, you play as a robot that jumps into a simulation by choosing a character and fighting off different enemies, which they call samples. The more samples that you fight, the more intelligence that you gather. Sounds very similar to the Street Fighter 2 animated movie, although I know that that's based on a different game that's also a 2D fighter, but I digress. Really, it's all just an excuse to get you into a roguelike game where you're going to fight off a bunch of different enemies and get stronger and die a lot. Dead Cells is probably the closest game that I can compare it to, but it doesn't have any of the Metroidvania-esque exploration. Instead, you're going to do a series of stages that are broken down into smaller chunks. These chunks are up to you to pick from in the typical random fashion that you would expect in a roguelike. And just so that for the rest of the review, you don't think of vomiting, I will now refer to them as sections instead of chunks. The most basic of these types of sections will be your battles, and you can choose to either do a regular battle or a more difficult one that will give you better rewards. Every time you move on to a new section, your entropy meter will fill up. This is kind of a risk-reward system because as you're fighting, you obviously get stronger, but while that meter is filling up, there might be more negative effects and debuffs against you. Because of this, one of the section choices that may be presented to you is to rest and lower this meter. But unfortunately, there are only a certain number of sections that you will play before you get to the boss of the stage. So if you rest too often, you might not be strong enough to take them out. Two other common options for your sections are to add potential or to use the shop. Potential is what the game calls adding new abilities and buffs for that particular run, and the shop is where you will use the currency that's normally to give you permanent upgrades after your run is over, and instead give you a short-term gain of either an XP boost, some more health back, or to lower your entropy meter. I apologize if any of this sounds confusing to you, but unfortunately that's just the way that this game is set up. There are a lot of different mechanics at play with pros and cons and meters and just things to keep track of, and it's not totally clear on how all this stuff is connected at first, but as you play through it, you start to kind of get the hang of it and figure it out. And I should also mention that this game is in early access, so some things might change over time. Honestly, I found myself having the most fun playing the game when I just shut my brain off and stopped worrying about whether or not I was making the right choice or not. Basically, early on, you're going to be dying a lot anyway, no matter what decisions you make, so why bother trying to stress out about it? Just have some fun, kill some enemies, and get a little bit stronger each time, so that eventually, as you get more of a hang of the game's mechanics, you'll be able to make those right choices later on. The core gameplay is quite sound as a fun little action platformer where you have your basic attack button, special attack, dash, and jump. Combine these with pressing different directions as you unlock new abilities and combos, and it really expands what the combat can be. And don't worry, fans of Dead Cells, you can still hold the left bumper button to regain some health. Don't expect big, long, epic battles while completing the levels though, as each section can be completed within a couple of minutes. They're really made to be played quickly, so you move on from section to section until you eventually get to the previously mentioned boss battles. And just as I said that the characters all felt like they played differently, each boss also felt truly unique with different types of attacks and patterns. Another cool feature is that as you unlock more characters, when you choose who you're going to run with, you can combine them with up to 2 other ones so that their special abilities are available to you by using the triggers. This allows you to have a character that you like the way that they play, but still have that special ability of that other character you really like. Fans of the BlazBlue series know exactly what they're going to get when it comes to the graphics of this game, and that is a nice, beautifully hand-drawn hand-drawn 2D anime style. Every character is extremely detailed and well animated. Obviously, the basic enemies are not going to look as cool as the characters that you play as or the bosses, but they still look great in their own right. Unfortunately, with the transition from 2D fighter to 2D action platformer, that means that the view is going to be a bit zoomed out more, so you do lose out on seeing some of the more little nuances. But with that said, within this particular genre, it does look amazing. While I had plenty of great things to say with every other department, I unfortunately can't say as many nice things when it comes to the sound. While the sound effects are decent enough, they do sometimes get a bit repetitive, and they also can be so loud that they can drown out the music that's playing. Speaking of the music, there were also multiple instances where there wasn't even anything playing at all, and it was just this weird empty feeling while playing. Again, I think this is just a case of a game being in early access and the focus wasn't quite there yet, and we'll see some improvements as time goes on. So to circle back to that learning theme that I mentioned earlier, the characters learn how to be better fighters. You're going to learn how to be a better player and what the mechanics are, and the developers are going to learn what players want as the game improves over time with it being in early access. While this game doesn't really do anything earth-shattering in terms of innovation, it's definitely something that's going to be super fun for fans of the genre. As somebody who has played BlazBlue a bit but isn't super into it, I still at least could appreciate the fact that I recognized some characters and was able to play a different type of game with them. Fans of fighters aren't going to find a new game in that particular type of genre, but maybe it will get them to try something new. I find this game easy to recommend based on the graphics and gameplay, but also just the fact that you'll be able to help mold and see what the game will become in the future. So what do you think? Are you a fan of the BlazBlue series? Are you going to check this out? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, maybe you can check us out at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames. Perks for signing up include access to our Discord server, exclusive streams, early access to videos at our sister channel at I Dream of Retro Games, and more depending on which tier that you pick from, maybe even including a free game or two. Check it out today.
知らねえぞ。はっ。かかれ変われろ。